Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Welcome back to the show. Yes, we are joined here by our coach, Coaching for Relevance, and excited to have Randy Swaim back here to talk more about how he's helping so many bring freedom to potential and so much more. A man with many titles, many accolades. I don't know how to introduce him except I
Well,
love that he
thank you.
dances with me, sings with me, and he's so cool. Loving the new background. How are you today, Randy?
Good, good. How you doing, Jill? It's
Great,
always an
great.
honor to be
Pump
here with
us
you.
up, and you will pump us up and motivate and inspire. That's what you do as a coach, as an author, as amazing. So, how did you want to start off for today's show?
Well, what we'll do, what I thought I'd bring today is when you're talking about leaders, and as you can tell on my background here, kind of thing, kind of a key part of what I spend time on sometimes is organization, maneuverability, the idea of, how do you really be successful in unpredictable and changing times. And so what I thought I was going to do today is bring a a strategic mindset and a strategic picture and vision that leaders need to be aware of when you're leading your team and developing your team and all that. And what I'll do is I'll actually, to kind of draw a little bit of a picture of it, I'll point out one military aspect and military strategy that has been used a number of times in the past, and everything. And then tailor it to this aspect. But it's very, very clear to really being successful and making sure that your team and your organization is successful in a situation or an environment or a goal that is not overly predictable, and factors can come on scene that you didn't expect. And how can you really do that? And so it'll be focused on the strategic thinking and the strategic planning, and just a couple of things to think about when you're leading your team. And so that's what I'll bring today.
All right. Thank you so much. Bring it on. How do we contact you to start?
Okay. Well, the bottom line, like, as you know, you can go to my website, coachingforrelevance.com, and down at the bottom, it has some contact information for me, my email, my cell phone, and all that. And as you know, you've heard me say this a number of times, but I don't do sales pitches. So, if somebody calls and they have a need of something, yeah, we'll come up with something. But I meet people, I get to know people, and I connect with people, and so they won't have to worry about me just every 37 seconds giving them a sales pitch or whatever. We'll have a conversation if they want. But if there's some need that they need, yeah, we'll come up with something for that.
All right. Thanks so much. Let's continue. And Randy, it's always an honor to have you here. Where are we starting out on this venture today?
Well, I'll tell you what I thought I would do is start out with a military picture of it.
Sure.
When you're talking about a military that has to be successful in a wartime scenario. And then what I'll do is I'm going to shift over to an organization and leading your team. But this will give a little bit of a picture of kind of where I'll go with that. And so It's just something to think about. And what I'll do is I'll just mention that a number of times in history, when military units, when they were engaged in a war or something like that, particularly if they're fighting an enemy that is like over the ocean somewhere or whatever, and all that, one of the things that you can recognize one or two times at least in history is that the military realized that they couldn't spend the time to kind of go on every single island out there and do something. And so what they had to do was develop this aspect, sort of an island hopping thing, if you will. But you had to have an insight that if you look at that line of, say, 6 or 8 islands that are going up to the target that you got to go after, it may be that 4 of those, yeah, you got to go address and you got to go attack at that point or whatever, possibly. But if you went to every one of them, that could be a great distraction. And you know
Yeah.
what? It could set you in risk and stuff. And so, military leaders realize how smart it is that sometimes you have to plan on kind of how you're going to do that, and that kind of thing. And what I want to do is to tailor this back to, like I say, sort of the business aspect of it.
Okay.
But when you're talking about leading your team in a rapidly changing environment, an unpredictable environment, which, let's face it, as you have heard me say on the show, and other listeners have heard me say a number of times, that not everything is totally predictable.
Mm-hmm.
When you set a goal and you set a picture for your team, this is what we want to accomplish. This is where we want to go. You got to realize that as you step forward, there's probably going to be factors that come on scene that you would have never predicted.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you think about the strategic aspect of where you're going and the vision that you're trying to accomplish, you'll probably come up with some that would come on scene. Some of the ones that would maybe be more blatant. But guess what? As you move forward on this, other factors are probably going to come on scene that you would have never expected. And it's also possible that when you move forward, a factor that you predicted comes on scene, but it comes on scene with a different approach than you would have realized. And the bottom line is, if all you're going to, and this is a neuroscience aspect of it, you've heard me say this before, that when you're leading teams and developing your teams, it's not just about going to your habit patterns of what you think is always the case, but it's the ability to get the processing going, to truly see the reality of the situation,
Mm-hmm.
and to make the right choices. And it's interesting because as you step forward, not everybody on your team. Now, if you only have two people working for you, guess what? You guys are going to be talking every day, kind of thing and all that. But if you're leading a bigger team on a mission, on a vision and a strategy that is bigger than just this little bit here, guess what? Your teammates are probably going to see the factors that are coming on that are unexpected that you didn't see.
Mm-hmm.
And guess what? Sometimes if they just have to come over and give you conversations about it all the time, that can be a big distraction. And depending on the factor that's coming on scene, if they're doing that, that may have impacts on where you're trying to go already, because they didn't do what's necessary there and do what's important. And so the bottom line is, when you're talking about leading a team in an unpredictable, rapidly changing environment, you gotta develop that synergy in the team. And synergy doesn't mean that you're just all doing it exactly the same way every day. No, guess what? Everybody realizes where you're going. They're aware of the factors that come on scene. And as you're stepping forward,
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that comes up is, when a factor comes on scene, do your team members have the ability and the presence and the processing ability to observe what that factor's doing? Because it could be a competitor that doesn't want you to succeed. You never know.
Yeah.
It could be a competitor that doesn't want you to succeed, or whatever. Who knows? Kind of thing. And do your team members have the vision and the picture and the processing and the awareness of what the team is doing?
Yeah.
Or if something is starting to come on scene, they go do what's necessary to just prevent it from having the impact that it wants to have. And the other part of that too is, are they aware of when they don't need to do that?
Yeah.
And so many times in today's world, you just hear a manager says, well, here's where we're going, you just kind of look up there and all this kind of stuff. Well, guess what? You may be missing the boat in today's world. You've got to be aware of that and everything. And you got to develop your team to be able to have a sense of that as you're going forward. Again, doesn't mean everything is wanting to do it. Nothing. It doesn't mean everything's wanting to destroy you or anything like that. but does your team have the ability and the awareness to be able to realize that, okay, you know what, that's not really affecting us right now, but as we keep going forward, I'm going to kind of keep my eye on that
Yeah.
and watch. And you know what, because it may be that for the next several weeks it doesn't have a real impact, but it may be waiting for a certain period in what we're doing to come in and have an impact. And are they aware of that? Are they watching for that? Do they know what they're going to do if it does come on scene?
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And these are just aspects that when you're talking about leading a team in a rapidly changing environment that's not totally predictable, kind of thing, and that you cannot predict every single factor that will come on scene. And
Mm-mm.
and so when you look at that military aspect of it, are you aware of which islands you need to just go beyond and not worry about, as opposed to go out and do that here, kind of thing? And it's just a lot of aspects about that when you think in terms of strategic thinking. Are you clear on that, or are you just going with rote academic stuff?
Yeah.
Here's where we're going, just go this way. Well, guess what? It may be that they don't need to worry about this factor over here, but it might be they need to watch for it.
Yeah.
And it might be that you need to watch for it. And here's the thing: if you have developed your team members well,
Mm-hmm.
guess what? It may be that they are aware of a factor that this is bringing, and are also aware of perhaps the risk that it is increasing in a way that you were not even aware of because of what they see happening,
Wow.
kind of thing. And can they communicate that? And so can your team really mold and grow and really become, when you're going forward in a situation that is not predictable? Because like I said, it could be a lot of things. It could be anything that's not really looking to destroy you or anything. But on the
Mm-hmm.
other hand, it could be something that is looking to prevent you from succeeding, and because somebody else wants to, a competitor wants to, or something like that, kind of thing. Again, I'm not saying unethical things there or whatever, but guess what? Sometimes that just happens. And when you're talking about your team and growing, and if you think about it, one advantage to that, if you develop in your team the ability to do that successfully and to work together, think about it. It's not just that you're doing that right now for this one thing.
True.
But what you're doing is you're preparing your people to be outstanding leaders for your organization going forward. It's part of their growth development because of their experience and what they saw and how it worked out and everything. So it's just an interesting strategic aspect of when you're leading your team. Are you even aware of some of those aspects? Because those are the kind of aspects that make true success happen. Because let's face it, a lot of times when your team is having to deal with something, guess what? You're not even there at the moment. It's not a thing where it's not a thing where they just don't do anything until you tell them what to do.
Yeah.
And even if you come in and say, we should do this in this case, well, guess what? The case they experience tomorrow may be a little bit different.
That's so true.
And you know what? They may have to tweak how they approach that and how they address it. And the other, and so that sort of aspect, when you're talking about really leading success in your team, that's a key aspect of that a lot of people don't really think about. But when you're trying to be successful for your organization, for your team, for the people you work with, for you, kind of thing. There's a lot of times. I mean, there's been a couple of times. I think the people remember that that I was a site manager at Griffiths Air Force Base for our Department of Defense training contract group that flew Learjets for a strategic air defense training contractor. And so we would take off and we would fly against
Wow.
the Air Force, we would be the bad guys or act like the bad guys. Now the Air Force knew who we were, kind of thing. So it wasn't anything life threatening to us. But I will say this, that there is a couple of times, particularly when you're a flight crew or a pilot and you're out there, I'm not with them.
Yeah.
They got to be able to make the right decisions, even if the fighters are doing something in a way that is kind of makes them sort of rethink something, perhaps, kind of thing. And that's just sort of another picture of this strategic aspect that we're talking about. But there's a couple of times that I will tell you, I mean, I was totally, I was totally honored to be leading and managing
Oh.
the team that I did, because the people, there were several times on there. I mean, there's a couple of times where I had to correct somebody. Not many. It was a good team, kind of thing. But
But
there was but there were several times where I had to applaud people for what they did and how they addressed something when they were out there flying or
oh
whatever
yeah.
kind of thing. And so
And
the
he's a
bottom,
pilot too. For
what's
those,
that?
he's a pilot too. For you all
Yes,
who don't
yes,
know.
I am. Yes, I am. So, but I'll tell you, it's just one thing to think about when you're talking about being a leader, and particularly, obviously I'm sort of focusing on strategic thinking today, and how do you really, one of the things that I just would throw out to the folks out there is, what do you really truly need to do to really develop your people? And that doesn't mean give them rote, superficial academic
Mm-hmm.
thoughts. It means help them process and develop. If you understand the neuroscience and how the brain works, help them process and develop the strategies and the thoughts and the action steps that they need to take sometimes. And guess what? Sometimes that'll be a little bit different than anything you would have come up with,
Yeah.
because they're face to face with the situation. But even as you're stepping forward in your strategy of what you're trying to accomplish, guess what? They look at this one factor, and the factor is not doing anything right now. So you know what? We'll just sort of watch it as we keep going forward. And if it never comes on scene, okay, it never comes on scene. But on the other hand, is if it starts to sneak in at a risky time for us, they've thought well on what they need to do for that as a team. And so those are just aspects that when you're talking about leading your team and developing your team to perform in an organizational maneuverability concept, where not everything is rote academic, not everything is just what's taught in a school. There's factors that you need to be able to process and be aware of and make the right decision at the right point in time to be successful in a little bit more of a risky situation. And so it's just a concept that a lot of people kind of don't think, because most people just
Yeah.
sort of think, hey, here's how we're going to do it. But as a leader, you
Mm-hmm.
got to have some insights on that. And guess what? You got to be comfortable with the fact that some of the insights you don't have
Oh
yet,
yeah. So
you
true.
know? And you know what? Can you have the conversations with your people, not just telling them what to do, but have the conversations with your people where you all as a team
Figure it out
are
together.
developing up the
And
radical success stuff. And so it's just something to think about. Like I said, it kind of comes from the uh, it comes a little bit from my military knowledge from decades ago and all this sort of stuff. But on the other hand, it really does apply to leading teams, and in a situation where, not everything's just rote academic, not everything's just rote predictable. Not everything's going to happen just because you wanted it to. So often, and you may have heard people say this before. I don't know. I've heard a couple of people say before that when it didn't work
oh,
out the way they wanted to, they
they
just cast blame on
oh
something out there, out there, out there, whatever. They don't take responsibility for it. They don't understand perhaps some of what they missed within
yeah.
themselves or within their team. And growing your team to be able to function when not everything is predictable, guess what?
Mm-hmm.
You can reach radical success.
Yeah.
And one of the ways, as a leader and as a coach, one of the ways you do that is by asking great questions
Yep.
of them to get them processing, but also in having some fantastic conversations where you get them to share with you some of their experiences with that sort of stuff. And you have some of those conversations, not just dictating to them, but helping them process out how we can do this better, good if it happens going forward and stuff like that. And so these are just some aspects of it that a lot of people don't think about, but it does take sort of that military experience background and brings it into leading teams in an unpredictable environment. Because it's not just rote academic, it's if you're building your teams that way and you're having that kind of relationship that way where you have some great conversations and you gain some insights, it's a great conversation if you have the conversation and then most of the people in your team and you are going, oh wow, yeah,
Wait a sec.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
kind of thing. I mean, magical things can happen, but the bottom line is that's just something that leaders have to need to rethink and kind of reapply what they're doing, particularly when not everything is rote predictable. And guess what? In today's world, it isn't. And so just something to think about on that. And it's just a concept that I bring.
Well, you bring a lot to the table here. Remind us again, Randy, how we can contact you. We still have more time.
Well, I'll tell you what, more time
Aw.
and I'm welcome to stay on with you for a few more
Well,
minutes here. But yeah, it's like I say, you can go to my I'll just mention a couple of things. You can go to my website, coachingforrelevance.com, and see a little bit about me, see some of the blogs that I put on there and all this, but also down at the bottom of the homepage, it has my cell phone number and my email address. And I'll also say, and this, that in June, my autobiography, which is the autobiography of my life story, was published on Amazon. And if you go to the homepage on the website, what happens is when you've been there for about 3 seconds, there's a banner for the autobiography banner that comes up. And if you don't want to see it, there's a little X in the upper right. You can click on that. But what you do is right under the picture of it, there's a little link that says get your copy. And if you click on that, it takes you right to the Amazon page where you can purchase it. And it's a lot of my autobiography has brought out a lot of these stories and a lot of this history and experience that has developed my understanding of this stuff and why neuroscience is such a critical part. And this, that on my website, you'll also see I'm a certified master level neuroplastician, which means that I'm a master level person that understands neuroscience. And I bring a lot of it to developing pilots and also coaching people, because
yeah.
that aspect is so important. But yeah, that all that is, I'm just so honored for the folks that I connect with there and all that. So yeah, if they go to my website, you can kind of see that.
Where are we going to see you on the next book tour?
Well, I tell you what, I'll be glad to get one, kind of thing. But I tell you what, if I will say this, that the people that have read my autobiography so far, it has sort of blown my mind in a positive way at what they shared with me about the value of it and just what they appreciated on it and everything. So I just I'm humbled by that. And it's a story where I bring a lot of honesty about my journey of growth and development, and who I became, but kind of where I came from and all that. And so it's I'm very humbled, and I just and what I tell people, I think you've heard me say this before, Jill, but 20 years after I take my last breath, I don't care if people don't remember my name, but what I hope for is that perhaps this and will also leave an insight that will be beneficial to people that are here long after I take my last breath. And so that's one thing that I hope. And as you know, Hollywood is in the process of recording a 78-minute movie documentary that is a story of my life journey that they're going to be posting on HBO and Netflix and all of this. So all of this there seems to be a lot of people that appreciate my story, and if it can just make a difference in people, even if they don't remember my name, you know what, I'm all for that.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much. Pleasure to have you here and looking forward to next time we speak again. Randy, as always, enjoy your day and thank you for inspiring us and helping so many.
Well, happy to, and I'll tell you what, Jill, as you know, it's always an honor being on with you. So listen, I hope you have an awesome rest of the week
Ditto.
and weekend.
Thank you. Happy
and
Halloween.
We'll see you next. Yeah,
Got it.
We'll find a mask to put on. So
I know tomorrow I will dress up. Thank you for reminding me. I have my kids. I will definitely remember. Have a great day,
Okay.
Randy.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.